Welcome back to New England Living. I'm Rachel Holt. First established over 160 years ago as a picture frame manufactory, it is a rare survivor of the small family-owned mills that once helped define New England. Up next, we learn the secret to keeping this tradition alive with Old Schwamb Mill's Dermot Whitaker.
Dermot, we're here on the first floor of the mill. What a cool space this is.
This is the part we're standing in right here. Was built in 1861. It was a mill that had burned down. It got rebuilt, and the Schwamb family, who came from Germany, bought it and began making picture frames here in 1864.
This is what you call a living history museum. What does that mean exactly?
Well, when the place went out of business, a woman from Arlington, Patricia Fitzmaurice, organized a trust, and she raised money, but more importantly, awareness of the place as a rare example of a family-run wood frame factory. New England was covered with these things for years, and very few of them survive. But when she took over as the first managing trustee, she realized it's meaningless if we don't keep the machinery running. So ever since 1969, when Pat came in here, she always had a turner on staff, and we continue that, and we continue to use the machinery to make oval frames.
Let's talk about a Schwamb picture frame, right? Because we buy a picture frame now and sometimes we don't even think twice about it. Here, so much work goes into making a single frame. They're called heirloom frames. I know there's another name for them too.
No, that's often the way that we describe them nowadays. In the 19th century, people would have been buying oval frames partly because of the fashion of the time. We think of it as a Victorian type of item. But they really lent themselves to portraits because of that shape. And everyone had portraits in the 19th century once photography was invented. Those oval frames to us nowadays, they look a bit old-fashioned, but they also represent the way people used to decorate their homes and their parlors in particular. Nowadays, people might get them as an heirloom type gift, like a wedding gift, often with a mirror in them. But historic homes and museums need us to make frames too, to replicate ones that they have in their collection. Maybe they don't want to show it the full year round, or they need a replacement.
We're in the workshop area down here. It's got the creaky floorboards. It's got the exposed beams. This is a really cool spot.
Almost nothing about the building has been significantly changed since 1969. It still has a certain dampness about it. It still seems like a 19th century or 20th century factory. And then all this exposed machinery is the way the place would have looked and sounded right up until it closed in 1969. And of course, by keeping the machinery running and keeping David Graff, our turner, on staff, we continue to have the place look and feel and sound like it did when it was a working business and not just a living history museum.
And a key part of that living history experience is wood turner David Graff, who's been creating these hand-turned oval frames for over 25 years.
All right, so David, you're the wood turner here at the mill. You're the person who is operating these machines that are some of the oldest in the country, I understand?
Well, I'm aware of the fact that this is a national historic site, and it's the only place left possibly in the world that has this particular kind of machinery. And the lathes in particular, the oval or elliptical faceplate lathes, are the only ones of their kind possibly in the world. I'm really trying to uphold that standard of excellence that they established over about 100 years of doing this work.
It's cool to think about the other hands who have touched these things that you now use.
That's a very good point. Yeah, I think about it. I mean, somebody had to design these lathes. Somebody had to sit down and think about how is this really going to work. There's a lot of thinking and choices that were made along the way, and here we are.
So much work, but it's 2025 and it's all still being used, and so all worth it.
Oh yeah, no, I totally respect the ingenuity and choices and the quality of the work that was done all those years ago.
What is the response like when people come in, because it is a living history museum, and you get to come in and actually see this happening in the process? What are the reactions that you get?
Most times people feel like they're actually stepping back in time. Everything's different, the telephones, the typewriter. And all the machinery with its belts and everything is just a totally different way of doing things than most kids have grown up with, where almost all design happens on a computer and is virtual, whereas everything in here is material and sharp and fast moving. And you're actually trying to make physical things interact with wood to come up with a beautiful object.
It does feel very untouched when you're in here. Stepping back in time feels completely accurate, almost as like a movie set in some ways.
Yeah, oh yeah. Oftentimes we draw like photographers and people like that who like to visit it just to take pictures of the place, inside and out. We hope that it doesn't in any way come across as artificially preserved or too neat. It's a working factory, so people should feel like they're stepping into a workplace. It's fun to imagine what the place would have been like at its height with 37 workers, a lot of them speaking German, running in this place and producing thousands of frames a week. One thing that's great about the place too, because the walls have never been cleaned or repainted or anything, is that they're covered with graffiti from the workers, oftentimes like the first snow of the year or serious snowstorms or big news events. Sometimes they'd record, not to mention their own names, their first day, the day they quit, all those things recorded on the walls. Occasionally notes about things that happened at the mill, the fire department arriving one time or something like that.
You are part of that legacy, present day, keeping the tradition of the mill alive. What does it mean to you to be a part of something like this?
This place has so many audiences and interests. Keeping the building and the machinery going is the first charge of this museum. Everyone who worked here is part of the story. The Schwambs who owned it is part of the story. The people who built it and the techniques used in building the place are part of the story. And so people who come here take away something different depending on what it is they see and want to know about. And we feel we have to try to preserve access to all of that for all the visitors of all ages.